Family business is literally the fabric of the Indian economy. It's what our country and economy has been built on. And for some time, I think we started loving this new shiny thing called startups. But the real rubric of the growth of our economy is family business. And I think the way for India to go forward is the new generation, speaking to the old generation, fusing tradition with modernity, and taking this generation of businesses forward. Today, I'm excited to have a special conversation with Sabina Bhanpurwala on her family business, Form Home, and how she's taking it forward in the 21st century as well. Sabina, your family has been in this business for more than 40 years now. And the business started as a business of refurbishing mattresses and then moved very far forward over the last 40 years. Tell us about the story of how this business came about and where it's gone over the last 4 decades.
So actually very close to 5 decades now. That's what we realized. We're at 48 years now, and in 2 years it'll be 50. So yeah, I mean, I've got a very, very powerful legacy on my shoulders in that sense. So like you said, very interestingly, we started as refurbishers. And that actually was the starting point of a lot of things, including, the fact that today we are a brand that caters to the premium segment. It wasn't a professional decision. It actually came out of this particular activity that we did, and we realized, oh, you know what, we're very good at this. We started, my granddad was into, traditional furnishing businesses, how you have those Rexine stores and, traditional, very traditional. We had a store at Bindi Bazaar. That's where it started. My dad is a law graduate, and for a law graduate to, just happen to pass by Tardev and see this store on sale, and, he's like, what, let me take it and we'll see what happens from there. That really was the start of it all, and we've been in this location, the same location now for 48 years.
Wow.
So it was a very abrupt decision of him wanting to give it a shot and say, okay, maybe not furnishing, but let's see what else we can do in this space since we have that knowledge, that little skill set. He started with, dealing in your basic mattresses that were available. So we started as traders. He was trading in, at that time, whichever were the well-known brands in mattresses. And he said, okay, people normally just have these small shops where they keep these little samples and that's how they're selling. How can we do it differently? So the one thing that has remained constant is that we've always wanted to do things differently. We've never followed the herd and we've not been part of the pack. It's always, we've kind of created our own space. And this has, I think, trickled down even like 4.5, 5 decades, even later, today also. So he's like, let's start and let's have a more structured outlet where people can actually come, lie down and try the mattress, because that's how you're supposed to buy it. That's how you're going to.
And that time there was none of this.
Not a single. People thought we were in fact mad that we moved out of a marketplace like Bindi Bazaar and Muhammad Ali Road and Bandra at the time. And we opened up a place in Tarde where there was, nobody came here to shop for that. So he started that, and obviously there were days, weeks, months where there were no customers. And you're like, have you made the right decision? Like, what is it that I'm doing? And then it just struck him, why not get into, people have mattresses which are very dear to them. They don't want to, part with them because they're so used to. Why not, refurbish them? Because I'm sure after a certain age, it's going to demand some sort of, refurbishing. So he said, okay, let's do that. He gives this small ad in Times of India, the top corner page. Refurbish your mattresses in 12 hours flat. We gave the ad. The next day, there is a queue outside the store. Now imagine the sight, there is a store which has not seen customers for weeks and months, and all of a sudden you have this huge queue outside. So people were literally bringing in their mattresses, dropping it here, and would come back in the evening to collect it.
So, we were delving into how important sleep is and how much research people are doing on sleep. I'm wearing this band on my hand. It tracks my sleep, my quality of sleep, restorative sleep, sleep debt, how much more sleep I need to do. It tells me in the middle of the day I need to have a nap, I'm in the high stress zone, etc. All of that. So clearly sleep is a massive conversation now, because people have realized that it's really important to not just your recovery but also your performance, the quality of your performance. And so everybody started behaving like an athlete. Everybody. Whether you're an athlete or not, you want to sort of have that mentality or thought process. So there's a lot of technology coming into sleep, and there's a lot of thought process coming into sleep, and what you sleep on, how you sleep, when you sleep, etc. All of that. Now, technology in this space is something that actually is newer. It's come over the last decade. That's when the conversation has started. Your company has pioneered a lot of research and a lot of innovation in this space. I remember reading about 20 patents that your company has. So talk to us about when this tech focus or performance focus started on your products, and what actually is unique about these patents and products?
So actually, we have, like I told you, we used to do a lot of international trade shows. One of the major reasons was we always wanted to bring in more sophisticated tech into the Indian mattress space. So we've been doing this for many, many years. But that time we were banking more on what the developed countries were doing and saying that, okay, that must be the great thing to do and therefore bring it to India. I think, but as we kind of got more and more into it, more years were spent into it, we learned more about technologies available and the Indian psyche, which by the way is the opposite of the world mattress consumer. The Indian consumer for buying a mattress is the opposite of a world consumer.
And what is so different between the Indian consumer and the global consumer in mattresses?
So firstly, we are the only country where we believe hard is the best for the back. You would have heard this from your
Absolutely.
grandparents, your parents, and be like, hard पे ही सोना चाहिए. Natural पे सोना चाहिए. This is the opposite to what is going on world around. World around, obviously it's the balance between comfort and support that has to go hand in hand. If you notice, if you go abroad, you will be sleeping on sinking soft beds. You want to sleep that 1 hour extra. यहाँ पे for us, sleep is like an exercise. ज़मीन पे सो जाओ. That is great. Now we are the only nation that believes in that. Whether true or not, debatable, completely debatable. But yeah, so speaking of technologies that were coming in, so in 2017, that's when we developed ErgoShell. So ErgoShell is where we have these 20 patents. Now it's not a technology as such. It is completely, we have revamped the way we are building mattresses. Like you would know, if I ask you as a layman, what is a mattress? You think of a sandwich. नीचे hard लगा दिया, बीच में transition layer, soft on top, mattress is done. Now that is not exactly what was working. A lot of new age customers, especially the well-traveled ones, they're like, why are our Indian beds, like patthar? Why is it like so hard? Whereas over there, I was so comfortable. We had to strike a balance between these two, between going with what the Indians prefer, but then what actually can and how we can make this better, which is where ErgoShell came into play. So we actually, about 4 years of research, and then we completely broke down your mattress, rethought of it, and rebuilt the construction. So now when you see the new age mattresses, the entire construction is different. So it's keeping in mind that the mattress needs to be firm only where you're heavy, not your entire mattress. So how do you do that? And that's where we've broken down the entire mattress into blocks, and of the block construction that we use. So now that is a new age tech coming from India, from a market which the world thinks is still in the Gadda era. They think we're sleeping on cotton gaddas and foyer and zameen pe so rahe. That was where really, ErgoShell was born. And what we've seen like now already more than 5 years ago.
And that's a thing of pride for the company, but also the industry, right? That an Indian company is spearheading new technology.
Yes.
And obviously you guys have spent a lot of time seeing what's around, but then perfecting for the Indian audience. And I always see in consumption, a lot of times Western rhetoric comes into Indian consumption.
Yeah.
But truly the Indian consumer is unique, and no global trend can directly be applied to the Indian customer. Cookie cutter approach doesn't work. You have to Indianize your offering because we are unique.
We are very unique. I'm telling you, even in
any other nuances of the Indian customer in sleep that is unique.
Customization is like a privilege, right, abroad. Whether your clothes or whatever. The kind of customization that goes into mattresses, when we talk to our principals abroad, they can't understand it. Because firstly, we don't have standard sizes in India. Each house, each bedroom has a different size. वो carpenter के मन में जो आया, he has designed and he has made. Those guys don't understand.
There is no queen, twin and king.
Nothing. We have our own queen, twin, king. And they're like, what are you saying? That means a customer comes in, you send somebody home for measurements, then you tailor make that individual piece and then you home deliver it. And it doesn't end there. That's when then your after sales come. He's used it for a few nights, not comfortable, you take it back, you readjust it and you deliver. These guys go like, what? They're speechless. They're like,
for a less than $1,000 product, how can you do so much work?
How can you do so much? But then that is the reality of my Indian consumer.
So, India is not traditionally known for being a R&D leader, right? And so you talked about the ErgoShell technology and how it's actually a industry-beating, industry-leading technology. You have taken this to trade shows around the world, shown it to people in nationalities around the world. What did they say when you came up with this? What was their reaction? And finally, what did they feel about the technology?
So they were very interesting experiences actually. So we've launched this like in Dubai, in USA, in Germany, in Turkey, and very common. Reaction was they would come inside the booth. They discussed everything, understood everything, wowed everything, and then we're like, we're from India. They suddenly, really? They would go back out, look at the placard. Oh, India? Really? There have been people who've taken my picture next to the technology. They found it so unbelievable, and it's both a good and a bad way, because good in the sense they were amazed that, okay, this is something great. It's a well done, well made up, well thought of technology. Bad because they're still looking at us as, somebody who's incapable of doing it. But well, we have done it, and we've got such encouraging responses to it that we're still, of course, in dialogue with a lot of these companies who are willing to then take it as a license and probably manufacture it in their country. But it's going to be an Indian tech that's gone to that level from a small specialized company in India. So
And so, what you're talking about is very interesting, because we are now thinking of India as a global leader. We're thinking of India as someone that's truly going to create global technology. Do you believe Indian brands can truly go global?
absolutely, like we just spoke about it, like how customization is actually a privilege over there. For us, it's our birthright. Give them something that they can't think of. I think where we go wrong is we try to get better at what they are doing. I think the way you can relook at it is, what is it that you're great at, and take that to them. So I think there's tremendous scope over there.
So look, I think we were, the last time we were speaking as well, we talked about the way traditional businesses have been run.
Yeah.
And for some time, the startup wave has come to India, and some of our startup folks questioned whether traditional business was too slow, was too old school, didn't want to move fast enough. But really in 2023 and 2024, the discussion came back to the word dhanda. The amount of times I've heard that word in startup circles also, clearly the focus has moved towards sustainability. And as business should be done to make money.
Absolutely.
And should be done to make profit. Now, you will see around you as well, lots of these hyper growth, exponential companies growing really, really fast, coming in, growing 5x, 10x. And sometimes that makes also traditional business mindset folks believe that, hey, am I doing the right thing? Am I second guessing it, right? So coming from a family business that is now in 2024, what are certain principles of family business or traditional business that stick in the same way that you won't change, because that's the way business is done? And what are you taking from this new wave of new age companies that you can imbibe in your business?
So when I say that I am a traditional business, or I'm doing business a traditional way, my end goal is different. When I'm saying I'm a startup who needs to show, my investors who I've made this much market share, my end goal is different. My aim is different. So I think there's no right, wrong really. It's what is your end goal.
And what is your end goal?
So my end goal clearly, if I'm coming from a family business, a traditional way of Indian business, right? At the core of it is, I'm thinking of a long-term plan. Exit हमारे language में कभी था ही नहीं. We were doing business to stay, to therefore then grow and leave a legacy behind. So for me, it's, I want to be valuable. I don't care about valuation. So my drivers are very different.
And there is no conversation of exit. There is no conversation
Absolutely
of selling out to someone. So build it brick by brick.
Build it to last. Build it to make an impact. That is what my driving force is. Maybe for the startup world, वो नहीं है. But I think what you're saying now is that they're realizing that there's no fun in doing business that way. We also want to leave a legacy behind. We want to leave an impact behind, because see, I think when I think of business traditionally, who's at the center of my decision is my customer. I don't think that always happens in case of a startup who's aiming to grow and, show that, okay, this is the kind of spends we made, this is the kind of investments we're doing. Where is the customer in this game? Because if you are, so for example, like you'll know this better, right? Selling products at losses. Why do you need to give your customer those freebies, those offers, those discounts? You're distracting him from what? From the very basic thing that you should have given him.
Especially in a category where a customer is not buying a mattress once every 3 years, once every 2 years, or once every year.
He in fact doesn't mind spending it, provided you're able to give him that kind of value for what he's spending. But we're not talking that. We're talking about all the other distractions, but the actual product and what's in it for him. Traditional businesses don't function like that. That is not, I think that's where the authenticity of a traditional business comes in, because we're talking to a customer. What is it that he needs? What is it that I can give him? Because that way I don't just make a sale, I make a loyal customer, which is where for us we are seeing customers like third and fourth generation now. Something right we've done.
So look, I think there is obviously lots of excitement and lots of conversation about being big and growing fast and all of these things. Right? But there is real value, at least to your customer set, and real differentiation and moat in being small and specialized as a company. Right? That is what for 48 years your company has decided to be and decided to do. What are the advantages actually of being a small and specialized offering rather than being everything for everyone?
I think one of the biggest advantage, goes to the customer, because I am channelizing all my resources to this one segment. I am developing purely for this segment. Therefore, my understanding, my penetration to this segment is far more deeper. I'm not diluting by saying I want to be there for everyone. Everyone's not my customer, and I made peace with that. This is the segment I want to focus on. This is the segment I want to retain, and therefore I'll do what it takes to give the best to this segment.
Is there the temptation sometimes that, hey, now, like, I need to go bigger, I need to grow faster?
More than temptation, like you initially said, you kind of feel like, 100 stores open kar rahe, 200 stores, and I'm sitting with one store, yeah, I'm not doing good enough. But now I'm actually thinking of it, because you need to define how much is good enough for you.
And what is good enough for you?
What is good enough? Like,
what's good for me may not be for someone else, and that's okay, right?
Absolutely. And again, this term of small, big is so relative.
Smaller
than what? Larger than whom? I'm doing well. For 48 years, I wouldn't have existed if I was not doing business, if I wasn't making money. Maybe that's the pace that I'm comfortable with, and that's okay. And I think there's a lot of pressure on maybe, companies my size who, like you said, are feeling that pressure, that we feel almost redundant. We're not doing anything because we are not spoken about, we're not glorified, like how media speaks about all these, new ventures and things happening around. But that is not what it is. What are you cut out for? What is your end goal? I am happy. I want to be a great company. I don't want to be a big company.
I remember a discussion that we had the last time we met about how deeply your business is focused on customer centricity.
Yeah.
You would rather have your customer talk about your company than have a brand ambassador.
Absolutely.
Right? And I believe that the testimonials of customers, what customers say, and that word of mouth marketing from customers is more powerful than anything else. I was telling you an incident before we started recording as well. Tell us the stories about what your customers say and how that customer centricity is actually translated into growth of business as well.
Sure. So again, like I said, whatever we've created, and we're talking about a very personalized product firstly over here. So I've actually directly interacted with customers here, right? My sales team directly is in touch with customers, and these are, of course, like I say, a very evolved. I won't call them premium customers. That seems like a very loose and weak word, but they're very evolved customers. So they really, like, the average dealing time at the store is about an hour and a half. So they really delve into what they're getting into, what's in it for them, and it's a problem we are solving and we're giving them. Now, I've solved that problem once. He's come back to me after 10 years because it worked for him. He's come back to me after another 20 years.
And the next generation may come back as well.
He's coming back. Right? But that also means that I've had to move at the pace of that next gen, right? He's not probably going to go with the same mattress that his dad or forefathers went. He wants something new. And we've made sure that we've moved, in time and with technology in that sense. But I'm saying, I think what you're asking me is, how we have kind of earned this loyalty. It has been because we've always walked the talk. Believe it or not, we have never worked the traditional way. Like I told you, we've never had sales, discounts, festive offers. As a company, we've never done any of this. Never. Because we've focused so much on creating such amazing products that the customer likes it, uses it, and there is no word more powerful than him telling somebody, you know what, this is tried and tested gold. And we've actually grown through that. Today, you need to pay people for those Google reviews and all. We never needed to do that. And we never told him. It's something that just came to us. And we realized that, you know what? It's spreading. The word is spreading.
So something beautiful you said right now, and I wanted to delve further into that, is people have been coming back time after time, be generation after generation, because they like the product.
Yeah.
And that is something really powerful that your business has, because the cycles may be every 5 years or every 10 years.
Correct.
So can you tell us some stories of families that have trusted you 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and still come, and your interactions with these customers?
I wish I could name my clients, but we've seen some unbelievable sort of, stories. Like I told you, we've had customers, and these are prestigious clients.
Without name, stories.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So, why I'm saying these are prestigious clients is not, they're not coming to me because I'm probably, let's say, a more expensive mattress, and therefore they are, saying that expensive means good. That's not the reason they're coming back to me. These guys can afford any kind of thing. You have now 2.5 crore worth of mattresses in the Indian market. So that's not why they're coming to me firstly. Why they're coming back to me is because firstly, they've understood the impact this product has on them. They've also maybe sometimes gone and experimented elsewhere and realized it's not worked and what that did to them. So we've had customers, let's say business tycoons, for example, for whom sleep is very important in their decision making. They understand this. believe it or not, we've shipped mattresses from here for 3 and 4 day stays that they have abroad. And we were amazed. They're like, are you serious? Like on war footing, we'd get calls from the team that, listen, you need to ship this mattress. The family is traveling and they are going to be staying there, and we need to replace the mattresses at that hotel and make it happen. And you know the kind of pride you feel in that. I mean, that's when you really know you're doing something so right.
That's an amazing story. So, I mean, obviously, sleep is a very important part of performance
Yes.
for sort of high stress, high performance individuals. They need to get their sleep, and that affects everything they do the next day. Whether you think about entrepreneurs or sports people, any of these people need that sleep. And so that story I've never heard before actually. 3-4 day trip, send the mattress because this is what I want to sleep on.
Yes.
But you're also trying to deal with a premium customer and delivering a product that is slightly above what the norm is.
Yeah.
Now, this customer wants to know why he or she is paying more.
Yes.
Because the Indian customer, as much wealth as that customer has, is still price value conscious. Right?
Absolutely.
I still check up all the 3 online travel agencies before I book a flight because
Best deal.
the 500 rupees makes a difference for
Yeah.
me, right? So the customer may have the ability to pay, but still wants to know why they are paying.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your approach to dealing with this premium customer, the levels of service, and what you do to give the customer the feeling that you're giving them what they want or giving them enough.
Yeah. So, premium actually is a very, I would think, a very, very myopic way of defining this particular customer. There's so much more to them, and it's very important to know that, because I think very loosely when we think of premium, the only thing that comes to your mind is, oh, somebody with a high purchasing power. But that's not what it is. Now, this customer is somebody who's very evolved. He's very intelligent. He knows what he wants. He's well versed. When he's come to you, he's done his research and he's coming to you. He is, and by the way, he's got money. This is what that premium customer is. Now, once you understand that, you need to know that you have to be absolutely honest with this customer. Honesty will be at the core of it. Educating him is again a very.
What does honesty mean?
So when I say honesty is, you need to walk the talk. You cannot be making false claims, or this is what this mattress has, is what it doesn't.
You'll get found out.
You will. And you, again, like I said, what if you just want to make that one sale and get done with it, great. Okay, you can do that very easily. But if you're saying you want him to come to you for the next 3-4 decades, then you cannot be doing that. Now the way you treat this customer, the way you talk to him, is very different from, like you said, any other mass product or commercial product. So, like for example, the kind of customers that come to us, it begins with firstly clearly understanding what is the problem he's looking to solve. So we spend a lot of time understanding that. Second is in educating him, giving him the options, and then he's the one who's going to decide, okay, this is what I want to go in for. You can't push to these guys. Most of the time, they're the ones who will find you and come to you. You want to be in that position. Unfortunately, we built a company that we are in that position where, okay, they know that if I want a specialized thing, this is where I have to go. So we have a very simple policy. And you're saying you need to chase the company. I'm sure these companies even give you warranties and guarantees,
Correct.
documents. We have never parted with a single warranty or guarantee document from our company when we are selling mattresses. The only thing when they leave our door, we tell them is, when there's a problem, we're following. And we're not saying this now, we've been saying this from inception.
So there is no warranty that you give with the
There
product.
isn't. Warranty is a big joke, Arjun. Very honestly, I'll tell you. And I tell this to a lot of my customers who compare us to brands that are giving warranties. I'm like, what? Just do me a favor. Before you buy your mattress, read that warranty. Not after. When you will read that, you're on the other side of the business, the final discretion lies with the manufacturer. How many times is the manufacturer going to admit to you and say, oh yeah, this is our fault? How often?
It's our mistake.
It's our mistake. How often is he going to do that? Especially in terms of mattresses. Let me take the little side of my manufacturers. It's so difficult to prove that the mattress is damaged because of a manufacturing defect and not of ill use.
Correct.
There's no ways I can prove that.
Correct.
I don't want to get into that dialogue with you. So I'm saying, if ever my mattress has caused you discomfort, I'm a call away. We'll fix it, and we've done that.
On a lighter note, you said that in a family business, work comes home and home comes to work, right? And I built my business with my wife as well, and
So
you can't stop it, right? It's a work-life, not a work-life balance, it's a work-life merger.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that when you just want to tune out and there's a family dinner and work is being discussed, or there was something discussed at home that was totally irrelevant to work but came into the office? How do you manage that sort of situation?
So for me, in fact, it's a slightly more different scenario because I'm not in the same home, right? this is my family business, and now I'm married into another family home and I have a son. But for me, it has to be a very conscious decision to not carry it forward. So even if it comes to my mind, it's like, no, this is where you draw the line. And I think that's a very required and a very healthy space, because as a mom, there's always that guilt, right, that you carry. When I'm at work, I'm thinking of my kid. When I'm over there, I'm thinking of my work. And where does that end? It only ends with a conscious decision that, okay, it may come in my mind, but push it away for that moment. But when I'm here, I'm purely and solely here. So I do that with both roles in that sense.
So one thing you actually said was that you came from a very progressive family, and your dad was very happy to want to have you in the business and always wanted to expose you to the business. But I would say that not everyone in our country is like your dad.
Yeah.
And the support of your dad is obviously important, but a business is not built by just an entrepreneur giving the next generation support. There are lots of external stakeholders both in the company and outside the company as well. So as you came into this role, there were obviously times when you faced situations where people didn't take you seriously. And the reason I asked this is because my wife faced the same thing, right?
Yes.
She managed operations and logistics for our business, and they were asking, at times people questioned as to why she was doing that, but she was better at that, and so that was the right thing for her. So did you face any of these situations, and what support helped you to get past these things?
You know, it till date that is on. I mean, firstly, one is of course that you're the second gen, while the first gen is still actively in the business. Secondly, you're a lady. Both these are not a very great position to be in. But what I've learned is that the only way to get through it is performing. When you show results, when you perform, and when people see that, whether they like it or not, they don't have anything that they can then counter, at you. So I think performance is what is going to keep you going, and your focus really should be that.
Thank you, Sabina, so much for spending so much time with us and opening up your story, your family story, and also the importance of how we need to think about sleep as well. I think what I took from this conversation is that it's not necessarily they have to be big, large, and exponential, but being small and specialized can also create world-beating technologies. There is a real market for premium businesses in India that is growing, and businesses that are truly keeping the customer at the center and understanding the needs of the customer and developing products for that customer are businesses that will lead forward into the next decade. Over and above all of this, I realized that I have a backache and I need to work on my mattress, because you spend at least 8, if not 9 hours, if not 7 hours a day, forever on your sleep. And so investing in this for all of us who care about our health, wellness and well-being is really important. So thank you so much for listening to this conversation, and hopefully you took out as much from it as I did. Thank you.